let's unpack this scenario. You put in the hours, right? Grammar makes sense. You've got a decent vocabulary. Written English, pretty manageable. But then, you put on a movie or you're chatting with someone, maybe not using that like textbook English.
Yeah.
And suddenly it feels like you're completely lost. The speed, those casual phrases that just seem to come out of nowhere.
Right.
The way words, just sound, different. It's really frustrating, isn't it? When you feel like you should understand, but the meaning just isn't quite landing.
Oh, absolutely. It's a super common hurdle. You've built this great foundation of English knowledge, but then spoken English, especially with all the different accents, it just adds these extra layers of complexity.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having all the right ingredients, but not quite knowing all the different ways they can be, put together or seasoned.
Exactly. And that's really what this whole deep dive is about today. We're not going back to square one. We're really digging into some fantastic insights from mastering English accents. A comprehensive guide, which is, it's incredibly detailed, over 6,000 words.
Oh, yeah.
Think of this as our way of giving you a bit of a shortcut, some tools to feel much more confident when you're listening to English spoken in, all sorts of ways.
Yeah, or to use maybe another analogy, your current English skills are like having a really good map of a city. What we're doing today is helping you understand the different dialects spoken in all the various neighborhoods.
Oh, I like that.
So you can navigate pretty much any conversation with, more ease.
Okay, so what's the game plan? First, we're going to explore the core reasons why understanding different English accents can actually be so difficult.
Right, the fundamentals.
Then we'll take a look at some of the most common accent variations you're likely to run into.
Get familiar with the landscape.
Exactly. And then finally, and this is the really practical bit, we'll give you some step-by-step techniques, things you can actually start doing right away to, tune your ear. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. And I think starting with the why is crucial. Why does spoken English, with all its accents, sometimes feel like you're trying to decode something completely new?
Well, the guide kicks off by pointing out something pretty basic but important. Native speakers tend to talk fast. It's not like they're trying to be difficult.
Yeah, not at all.
It's just the natural rhythm. So take a simple phrase like, "What are you doing?" In a normal chat, it often squishes down to sound like, "What you doing?" Same meaning, but a lot of those sounds get sort of smushed together. Or, I'm gonna eat. That very often becomes, "I'm gonna eat." The syllables just seem to be in a rush.
And that speed, it directly leads to something linguists call linking and reductions. It's not just the pace, it's how words flow into each other and how certain sounds get weakened or sometimes disappear entirely. Like, you almost never hear those as two distinct words, right? It's much more likely to sound like didja.
Yeah, didja eat. Yeah.
Exactly. And going to is almost always gonna, and want to usually comes out as wanna. These aren't like formal grammar rules, but they are a massive part of everyday spoken English. It happens because we stress some syllables more.
Right.
And the unstressed ones often get, reduced.
It's like the words are stuck together with this kind of invisible glue, and sometimes the glue dissolves bits of the words. Then there's the whole fascinating thing about pronunciation differences.
Yeah.
Same word, different sounds. The guide uses that classic example, water.
Ah, yes, water.
In American English, you typically get that clear R sound, force sound. But in, say, standard British English, it's more like AGR. That final R often just vanishes.
Yeah, non-erotic.
And then if you hop over to Australia, it might sound more like it's GJ. Same letters, same meaning, but quite different sounds hitting your ear, aren't they?
Definitely. And think about it from your perspective as a learner. You might have first learned just one way to say water.
Right. My way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you hear these other perfectly valid pronunciations, it can cause a little hiccup, a moment of, wait, what was that?
Right.
Even if you actually know the word.
And just to make things even more interesting, we've got slang and idioms. You could be a grammar genius, honestly. But if someone casually says they're going to hit the sack and you only know the literal meaning of hit and sack,
Yeah.
well, you'd be pretty confused.
Understandably so.
It just means go to bed. Or if someone says they need to catch some Z's, same thing. They just mean they need to sleep. It's like this whole other layer of vocabulary, these casual shortcuts.
And what's really interesting is how all these things, the speed, the linking, the sound changes, the idioms, they all weave together to create the unique sound and feel of different accents.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a clearer picture of why figuring out accents can feel like, well, cracking a code sometimes.
Yeah, it's multifaceted.
So let's move on to exploring some of that amazing variety. The guide gives a really useful rundown of some common accents you might hear.
Exactly. And just getting a basic familiarity with the key traits of these accents can be a huge first step. It helps you anticipate what you might hear.
Okay, let's start with American English. We already mentioned the strong R sound in water. The guide also notes that the T sound, when it's between vowels, often softens into more of a D sound.
Right, the flap T. So butter can sound a lot like butter, or letter, like letter.
Then we hop across the pond to British English. Often you'll hear more distinct syllables being pronounced, and like we said with car, that R at the end of words often gets dropped, so car sounds more like ka.
Though there's a huge variation within the UK itself, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Now down under, Australian English, often described as having a bit of a nasal quality, and the vowel sounds can be really distinctive. The guide mentions mate, sometimes sounding closer to might.
Yeah, those vowel shifts are quite characteristic. It takes some getting used to.
Moving over to Indian English, a key feature here can be a strong emphasis, a clear stress on each syllable. And sometimes you might notice extra little vowel sounds inserted within words.
It often has a very distinct rhythm because of that syllable timing.
Then the guide also touches on African English accents, using Nigerian and Kenyan English as examples. A common feature there can be really clear syllables, maybe less of that super connected, flowing speech you hear in some other accents.
Or often very clear articulation.
And finally, European accents, thinking about speakers whose first language is, say, French, German, or Spanish. Their native language obviously influences their English. You might hear things like a rolled R or slightly different vowel placements.
Absolutely. The phonology of the first language often carries over.
The big takeaway here, as the guide stresses, is that just having a general awareness of these kinds of patterns, it can really help your brain adapt faster when you hear someone speaking. Gives your ears a kind of head start, you know.
Totally. It's about starting to map out the different sonic territories of English. So, okay, we understand why it's tricky. We've touched on some common accent types. Now for the really actionable stuff.
Yeah.
How can you actively improve your listening skills? The guide lays out a great step-by-step approach.
Okay, step 1, start with subtitled content. Seems simple, maybe, but the trick is to consciously notice how the written words match up with the sounds. Look for those reductions, that linking we talked about. The guide suggests shows like Friends or The Office. They're good because the dialogue is usually pretty clear everyday situations.
And then, logically, the next step is to listen without subtitles. Once you've used that visual crutch for a bit, take it away. Challenge yourself. Rewatch a scene, try to pick out the words, pause, rewind.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe jot down words or phrases that are still unclear. You can look them up later.
Step 3 reinforces that link between seeing and hearing. Use audiobooks with the text. This is brilliant for really cementing how words sound when read naturally.
Oh, I love this method.
Yeah. The guide suggests things like The Alchemist or the Harry Potter series, loads of audiobooks available for those. Following along with the text while you listen really trains your ear.
Now, we get a little more technical, but this can be incredibly powerful. Learn phonetics and sounds. The guide mentions the International Phonetic Alphabet, the IPA.
Ah, the IPA. Looks intimidating.
It can seem that way, but think of it like a universal code for sounds. Our normal alphabet is messy, right? One letter can make lots of sounds. The IPA gives each sound its own symbol.
Okay.
So knowing that the is the in thought and a is the way in though, that level of precision can really help you hear and make the difference. The guide also mentions vowel differences, like can in American English is ken, but in British English it's often more like ten, using that weak schwa sound.
Right, that little huh sound. Okay, that leads nicely into a technique called shadowing. This sounds pretty active.
It is, and very effective. The basic idea is you listen to a short bit of audio, maybe just a sentence or two, and then you immediately try to repeat it, mimicking everything. Not just the words, but the pronunciation, the intonation, the rhythm, the pauses.
The whole package.
Exactly. Start with short clips, maybe a minute. The guide even suggests recording yourself.
Ooh, brave.
Yeah. But it lets you compare your version to the original. Apparently, apps like ELSA Speak, Speechling, and Youglish can be really helpful for finding material and getting feedback too.
Good tip. Okay, step 6 is about moving from just hearing to really listening. Practice active listening.
Engaging your brain.
Yeah, not just having English playing in the background while you do dishes. The guide suggests asking yourself questions while you listen. What's the main point here? Any new words jumping out? What kind of accent am I hearing?
Podcasts and TED Talks are fantastic for this. They're usually focused on conveying information clearly.
Makes sense. Now, if the goal is understanding different accents, step 7 is pretty obvious. Practice with multiple accents. You have to expose yourself to them.
Absolutely crucial.
The guide lists some great resources. YouTube channels like BBC Learning English for British.
Yep.
Rachel's English for American, Aussie English for, well, Australian.
Good range there.
And IELTS Liz often features different speakers. For podcasts, they mention This American Life or NPR for American, Luke's English Podcast for British, the Aussie English Podcast, and the Musafer Stories for Indian English. The advice. Aim for maybe 10 minutes a day, just dipping into different sounds.
Building on that exposure, step 8 is imitate native speakers. Choose someone whose accent you like or want to understand better.
Like pick a role model.
Kind of, yeah. Maybe an actor, Emma Watson for British, Morgan Freeman for American, Chris Hemsworth for Australian, whoever. Watch short clips of them speaking.
Okay.
And really focus on copying their tone, their stress patterns, the rhythm, even how they use their face when they talk. It helps you develop a feel for the physical aspect of the accent too.
Interesting. Step 9 zooms in on the intonation, stress, and rhythm. The guide calls this the music of the language, which I like.
It really is. It's not just the notes, the sounds, but how they're played together.
So, intonation, the rise and fall of your voice, signaling questions or feelings, sentence stress, emphasizing certain words to change the meaning. The guide uses the example, I didn't say she stole the money, means something different from I didn't say she stole the money.
Visual difference.
Totally. And then rhythm English being a stress-timed language. The stressed syllables tend to pop up at fairly regular intervals.
And getting that music right, or at least understanding it, helps comprehension massively, even if you miss a word here or there. Which leads to step 10. Learn common native expressions.
Ah, the idioms and slang again.
Exactly. Even if you don't catch every word, knowing common chunks like "how's it going"
Right.
just means "how are you?"
Right.
Or "no worries" means it's okay, or don't mention it.
Or I'm beat for I'm tired.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Knowing these helps you fill in the gaps. The guide suggests maybe learning 5 a day and reviewing them.
Doable. Okay, step 11 is about getting out there, virtually or otherwise. Practice with real people.
Putting it all into practice.
The guide mentions language exchange platforms, Tandem, HelloTalk, Speaky, where you connect with native speakers learning your language.
Great way to get authentic conversation.
And also looking for English-speaking groups, maybe on Meetup, Facebook, Discord, things like that.
Yeah, finding communities. And naturally, step 12 is about leveraging the tools we have. Use technology to help.
We mentioned a few already. ELSA, Speak for Accent Coaching.
Speechling for getting feedback on your pronunciation from real people.
LingQ for reading and listening.
And those websites. Youglish is amazing for seeing words used in context in YouTube videos.
Oh yeah, Youglish is fantastic.
And Forvo for just hearing how words are pronounced by native speakers all over the world.
Okay, now a specific scenario. What if someone's just talking incredibly fast? That's step 13, dealing with fast speakers.
Happens all the time.
The guide suggests having a couple of polite phrases ready. Things like, sorry, could you repeat that a bit more slowly? Or, I'm still learning English. Could you say that again, please?
Perfectly reasonable things to ask.
And also, strategically, try to focus on the key words. Even if you miss the little connecting words, grabbing the main nouns and verbs, like in the example, lunch later around 2, you can often get the main idea.
Yeah, focus on the information carrying words. Step 14 is a big mental shift. Don't translate in your mind.
This is a tough one for learners.
It really is. But the guide emphasizes trying to think directly in English when you're listening and speaking. Start small. Name objects around you in English. Narrate your day silently in English. Form simple thoughts in English.
Bypassing that extra translation step makes processing faster.
Much faster and more natural. And finally, step 15 is absolutely essential. Motivation and patience.
It's a long game.
Exactly. Learning to understand accents takes time. It takes consistent effort. You will make mistakes. You will have days where it feels impossible.
We've all been there.
Absolutely. The guide just reminds us to be kind to ourselves, celebrate the small wins, and keep practicing.
And to help with that consistency, the guide even includes an extra daily practice plan as step 16. It suggests some manageable 30 minutes a day.
Yeah, broken down nicely. 10 minutes in the morning, maybe you listen to a podcast or video, grab 5 new expressions.
Okay.
10 minutes in the afternoon for shadowing a short clip, really focusing on the accent and intonation.
Got it.
And 10 minutes in the evening, watch a short video, maybe first with subtitles, then without, and then try recording yourself imitating the speaker.
That sounds like a really solid practical routine. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway from the guide seems to be this. Getting better at understanding accents isn't about reaching some mythical state of perfection.
Not at all.
It's really about training your ears, building confidence step by step, and just being consistent with your practice. It's a journey.
And what's really hopeful, I think, is that even small, regular efforts like that 30-minute plan can genuinely lead to significant improvement over time. You will notice a difference.
Exactly. Imagine that feeling maybe a few months down the line when you're watching that movie or chatting with someone and you suddenly realize, hey, I'm actually following this much more easily. That's the payoff. That's the reward for putting in the effort. So maybe take a moment to think about all the techniques we've talked through today. Which ones resonated with you? Which one or two could you maybe start weaving into your routine this week as you continue on your path to confidently navigating all the diverse sounds of English?